Hello everyone and welcome to a review of the film Iron Lung. Listen, this video is a little bit overdue. It's a little late. It's been like a day or two since I've seen the film, but we're still here to talk about this movie because I want to do a review of this movie because this is the very first YouTuber movie that I have wanted to watch and I have watched in theaters. I have never seen a YouTuber movie in theaters before, and having it be Markiplier is a massive plus because this guy is someone that I've been watching since I was like a baby, you know? When I was 12 years old, I was watching Markiplier Let's Plays. With that being said, I am going to try to keep this review as unbiased as possible, okay? But also, before we get into this review, I do want to throw a couple things out there, which is, first of all, I enjoyed this movie. I did really like it, and I want that to be clear because I am going to say some stuff that sounds bad or some stuff that sounds a little cringy, and that is the case, but it still overall is a really good movie, to the point where I would even classify this as like a 10 out of 10. And there's a reason for that. I will explain it, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, brother. But listen, okay? Hear me out, alright? Hear me out, okay? So, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought the atmosphere was basically nailed. There was a few things like his shirt and the set design that felt a little bit weird and a little bit like costumey, but other than that, everything else felt really solid and really clean, and I liked it a lot. Especially the atmosphere of like the blood ocean, I guess is what I'll call it. That was a weird stutter. Can you even call it that? But this blood ocean is such a cool aesthetic and such a cool environment to be in, because even though you don't really see it, like you're all inside of this submarine, you can like feel the outer area basically. Like it feels very in world, and part of the reason that is this entire set, this submarine was on like a giant pole pivot thing. So like if this is the submarine, there's like a pole in the bottom holding it in place so it can pivot to make it seem like it's underwater and move around and stuff. And having that be the case leads to some really nice set stuff where Mark will pull a lever forward to make the ship go forward, and the entire ship will begin to go forward. Like it's very well done in that sense. There's a very good sense of spatiality, and I like that a ton. And as far as the atmosphere when it comes to horror, I think it does a lot of stuff really well. It's very claustrophobic. I think the monsters in this movie, because there is monsters, I think they're very well done. I think the visuals of them, there's a few aspects of these visuals that are a little like, it's a little obvious that it's like a set or CGI or like part of a costume, but overall it just looks really good, especially later on when these makeup effects and stuff start affecting Mark. You can see it really just, it's really well done. And I am going to be calling him Mark, even though his character in the movie is called Simon. I am calling him Mark still. As far as everything else goes with this movie, I think the music and the sound design, I wouldn't say it's anything too insane. The sound design is awesome. The sound design is amazing because you can really feel the weight of these monsters and the weight of the pressure of this blood ocean on this like submarine, and it's very cool, and some of the sounds they make are very neat as well. But I think the music is kind of just alright. It's nothing to write home about. It's no Scorsese or anything like that. It's just okay, and that's alright because the music isn't like the big selling point of this movie. In fact, from what I can remember, there's a lot of points in this movie that don't have any music in them. It's very much just like silent, just like let it ride type shit. Which leads me to my next point. One of the biggest complaints I have seen online about this movie so far is that this movie is a slow burn, or that it takes too long to let things happen. And my response to that is, what? Watching this movie, I'm not gonna lie to you people, I was locked in from start to finish. There was multiple times throughout this movie where I was like, oh, I gotta go get a soda, or I gotta go use the bathroom, and when it comes to getting the soda, I had someone else do it. And when it comes to going to the bathroom, I didn't, because I was locked in during this movie. I didn't want to miss a second of screen time, because even in the beginning, when this movie is moving slow compared to the rest of the movie, I think this movie does a really good job of showing you a ton of information and getting across some really neat things as things go on, to really let you know that this isn't just, I don't know, it's not just an establishing shot to me, it's also telling you stuff. Like, for example, there is a shot at the very beginning of the film where you see Mark messing with the map from the game and figuring out how to use the controls, and this scene goes on for quite a bit, but it's not just a scene of him fumbling with the controls, it's also a scene that shows you that in this ship, it is a boiler room level hot. These pipes are burning, so if you were to like run into a pipe on the wall, you would get burned, and stuff like that is kind of thrown about the place a lot, to kind of show you these little details, and also just showing the buildup of him learning all these things, because throughout this movie, he gets insane at piloting this ship that he's in. He gets to the point where he's doing that shit, like, by second nature at that point. Like, it's crazy how well he gets, how good he gets at this, I mean. But I think this movie does a really good job of establishing him getting better at doing this thing inside of the submarine, but also all of these shots at the beginning are showing you very important stuff that will show up like throughout the movie, like him learning how to use the little button on the wall that is like a camera that's from the game, where in the game you walk up to it, you click the button, and it takes a picture of what's in front of your submarine. Same thing here. There's a lot of stuff like that that's a direct rip from the game, but I think it works really well, and I think it's really, really good. And I think if I were to have less context for this world, I think I've heard a lot of people saying that without any context of the game, the movie would be bad. And I guess my response to that is it's a blood ocean. An ocean of blood? And like that's kind of where I'm at right now, of like, do you not understand the spectacle of that? Like, a lot of the people that I've seen reviewing this movie are calling it, like, boring or, like, uncreative, and I'm just like, it is an ocean of blood that we're talking about. You know, like, this is something we have never seen in a horror movie before, and people are calling it not unique and saying if you didn't know the game, you wouldn't like the movie, and my response to that is, it's an ocean of blood. A blood ocean. I mean, I really have to drill that point home, I think, because people have kind of, you know, gotten over that fact because Iron Lung has been out for so long and they've been talking about it for so long. But this is an ocean of blood. And not only an ocean of blood, but an ocean of blood with creatures inside. Alright, so this is a very, very good premise, and I feel like even if you haven't seen the game, you might be a little bit confused on why things look so rudimentary, basic. But I think you will still enjoy the movie because the set design is a direct rip from the game, to the point where it's like an arrow and like blocks on the wall, and like the button to activate the camera is just a rectangle, because that's how it was in the game. That's exactly how it looked in the game, and that's exactly how it looks here, which I think was really well done. They did great on the set design. Another thing I think they did really well was finding out how to make 2 hours of content in a space that is essentially a rectangle, you know? Like, the entire movie takes place in the submarine, inside of this one little tiny space. And they've somehow found a way to make it, like, entertaining the whole way through. Because I know a lot of people will say this movie is a slow burn, but in my opinion, this movie went through everything possible so quickly. The first 10 minutes or so of this movie is like the first game. That's like what you do in the actual game. You go through, you go to these locations, and then, you know, they bring him back up. And this is kind of where I'm going to get a little bit into spoiler territory. So before we get into that, I just want to say these are going to be minor spoilers for a little bit. Then we're going to get into heavy spoilers. But for now, I'm going to leave it here by saying overall movie review, 10 out of 10. I think there were a few cringy line reads by Mark. But other than that, I think his acting was really on point. I think he did really great. I think besides the few cringy lines that were written into the script, I think it was overall really, really well acted on all fronts, because not only is it Mark, but it's also a couple other people on these voices over the radio and stuff. And I think they did great. I think everyone did wonderful. And Mark does scream a lot, don't get me wrong. There is a lot of like angry Mark moments, which people get mad at him a lot for that with his acting, where it's like, oh, well, he just gets mad and yells at games, so that's what he does in his acting too. And I get that to a certain extent, but I don't see a problem with playing into your strengths, and especially with this situation that this character is in, I would be pissed off too. So a very reasonable situation going on, really not that bad in my opinion. But jumping into spoilers from that point on, movie's great. This is spoilers, click off now if you don't want to see them, but also please like the video, please. So getting into the spoiler territory, basically the movie starts off with him doing the first game. Then he goes back up and talks to someone through the submarine window, and this is your only glimpse of humanity. This is your only glimpse of any other characters in the entire film, and this little scene gives you a bunch of information, then kind of throws him back down. And when they throw him back down, that's when the movie really starts to get unique. That's when the movie takes a step away from the games and just starts doing its own shit, quite literally, to the point where at a certain point in this movie, he wakes up outside of the map. They have this map that's like a big grid, and he wakes up outside of the map. He has no clue how he got there. He just wakes up in the submarine, and he's on the outskirts of the map. So he starts to map this place himself. And this is a really cool sequence, in my opinion, where he really gets to learn how to drive this ship, and how to navigate properly, and how to map everything on the wall, just like how it's mapped for him, to create his own path through this cave, because he doesn't want to die that bad. And throughout this scene, it's like a good 3-4 minutes of him doing this, which is why I think people say that it is dragged on. But this is time passing, like a lot of time passing. Throughout this movie, they have oxygen meter that's like counting down, and when it gets to 1 square, it stays at 1 square for the rest of the movie. Genuinely, the rest of the movie. And the reasoning for this is it's kind of weird. Basically, when he disappears and goes into this cave, he then shows back up, and the lady over the microphone is like, hey, how the fuck are you alive? You should have ran out of oxygen days ago. You've been gone for multiple days. And that, in my opinion, is what is so cool about that drawn-out sequence, and about every single drawn-out sequence in this entire movie. It's not just showing him fumbling around with shit for 20 minutes. These are days passing. This is a lot of time that he is spending in this submarine, in this thing, staying alive and trying to live. This is a lot of time, and it's not just 1 day, it's not just 2 days, it's like a week of time, from what I can understand. And again, they never confirm this. A lot of it is speculation and theory, but it also is really, really cool to have that there, where you can assume that this is a long time passing, because there is multiple points in this movie where you see a pile of shit from, not shit, like a pile of things on the ground. For example, he puts tape on the button to activate the light outside and to activate the light inside, because it's a camera outside, but it works as a flashlight. So that auto activates that light, and at a certain point there is a time skip, and you see in the corner, as he's getting frustrated at the tape falling down, you can see in the corner a giant pile of X's that he's been putting over these lights to try to make it go. So he's been down here for a day and a half using this strategy of putting tape over the light to try to get it to stay on. And that is such a cool way to tell you the passage of time. Not just by doing it literally, not by being hey, you're down here a long time, or oh, I've been down here for days, help me, none of that. I mean, obviously the girl says you should be dead, it's been days, how are you alive? But besides that, that's the only hint you get, is these visuals. And that's what I love about this movie so much, is these visuals. The visuals in this movie are really, really well done. And we're gonna get into heavier spoilers, really heavy spoilers at this point. At a certain point in this movie, at a lot of points in this movie, blood gets onto Mark. And the blood from the outside is not normal blood, it is like tainted blood. And it's hard to assume whether it's radiation or whether it's a sentient blood pool monster, but it is either one of those two. And throughout this movie, you see Mark get hit with blood in the face, in his hand, on his like wrists, and just kind of all over the place really eventually. But this blood is basically melting him and changing him fundamentally. And one of the big moments that we get in this movie is basically a reveal that a lot of the movie has been a hallucination brought on by this creature. Mark disappears off of the map, wakes up in a cave, goes through this cave for multiple days, and then a monster basically kills him and shows him the rapture, and then he wakes back up and he has made no progress. It is as if everything he did was in a pocket dimension, and then he was snapped back 2 days later exactly where he was, in front of the skeleton where he was originally. So that's what happens, but everything he did still happens. The wall map is still there, time has still passed, the X's are still on the ground, he still has the information, and the information is correct. So he clearly did something in that time, but it's also like an ethereal dream brought on by this monster to try to get him to the same place that the other ship was so it could kill him, basically. Like, it's essentially a giant anglerfish of a monster trying to lure him into this spot by giving him hallucinations. And then that is what brings him to that spot that ends up killing him and all that. All that to say that the sequence where he goes through all this stuff is very, very cool to me and very well done, because it still has consequence and still affects him, but it also does explain how he can go on without the oxygen going away or whatever, and how he can go through these things without eating or sleeping or anything like that. But really all that to say that this sentient blood, or this radiation blood, throughout this entire movie is really, really fucking with him. And the first time that he has this hallucination is right after blood squirts into his eyes. And that's like the beginning of that sequence, which I think is a really cool touch, because that is the monster seeing him, because literally before that it's a big eyeball in the window. Super cool shot, really cool shot. So the monster knows he's there, and it wants to corrupt him so that it can lure him to the spot to kill him and stuff, and to hide his ship, because the monster is very smart in this movie. The monster knows that the ship has a black box, and the monster knows that if the humans get the black box, that the monster will eventually be killed by the humans, because they'll know. But in order to stop Mark from getting this black box back to the surface with all this information and with this sample of this monster wants to lure him to the other ship that they never found and kill him in the same exact spot, so that all the information is down there. So this is like a very, very smart monster, and I like that too, because there's this sense of like inferiority on Mark's end, where he's this tiny little guy fighting against like literally an ocean, fighting against this giant beast that encompasses the ocean, because this blood is quite literally hostile. There's multiple points in this movie where the blood is fucking killing him because he made contact with it. And it's crazy, and it's really cool, and I love it, but it's really hard to tell if it's radiation or not. Either way, basically I'm getting sidetracked at just describing the movie at this point, because there's so much here to kind of dive into and to talk about, and it's all really, really cool. But another main topic that I want to touch on before we end this movie review is the fact that a lot of people kind of said that the girl over the speaker has very little humanity, or that their chances or opportunities of giving him humanity was basically ruined, giving them humanity, I mean. And they took all of her chances away, and she was a very dull character, and that's what people were saying. And To that I say, there's a lot of context to imply otherwise that doesn't directly tell you otherwise, but it does happen, and it's very, very cool in my opinion. For example, during this situation where Mark goes back up for a little bit and you see humans, he takes a picture of a guy because he's pissed off and he wants out of the submarine. And that's when they learn that the submarine is like, had the camera on the submarine is a radiation camera. So when he took that picture, the guy that he took the picture of got a massive dose of radiation, like basically killing him. He's like fucked up. But later on, when Mark is like, how bad was it? At first, she doesn't tell him anything, but then she tells him he has a couple tumors, but he'll be okay. But later on in the movie, she is saying like, hey, I need this guy. Get him so I can weld this thing shut. And the guy in the background is like, you mean that guy? He can't even walk. So that is implying that it's so much worse than what she said to Mark. And she said that to try to make him feel better, because she does have humanity despite the situation and despite the circumstance. And the other situation that I want to draw attention to is the end of the movie, where she decides to go in after Mark. She says, if you really have this information, I will go down and get you myself. And that isn't just her going down there to get the information and die or whatever. It's her genuinely believing that he does deserve this redemption and trying to find an excuse and a reason to, because she says multiple times throughout this movie that she has higher-ups too, and that those higher-ups aren't letting her make decisions like save him and bring him back up, or, get oxygen for him or whatever. So because of that, she is looking for a logical excuse that she can bring to the higher-ups, like the black box, to go down and save him, because she wants to. She wants to help him and wants to save him. And that is a really cool way to show the humanity, because they don't directly tell you. They're just like hiding it in the context. And that's what I love about this movie. Stuff like that, where it's showing you all these contexts, all this context. And also, not to mention all these super, super cool shots of like skeletons in the dark, or literally like a fucking rapture, basically. I mean, there is a point in time where the ship explodes and Mark is like in the seat and it's slow motion and all that shit, and that's whatever. But when the ship finally explodes and engulfs him in blood, there's this really cool shot of him like waking up above the ocean of blood, like, kneeling in it and staring at this giant skeleton, and it's so cool. It's so cool. One of the coolest things I've seen in film in recent time. It's so cool. It's so awesome. That type of stuff was also really, really impressive to me. The visuals in this movie were very, very, very cool to me, but I really like ethereal horror and like cosmic horror, and again, it's a blood ocean, okay? The idea of that alone, you got me. You hooked me in, okay? You did it. And so, this movie review is a little bit biased because I'm coming from the lens of, I am a person who has made a FNAF theory. I am a person who likes Five Nights at Freddy's still, despite the clear flaws. So, that type of stuff is clear to throw out there for this movie review because I don't have standard taste. I'm very willing to sit there and let a movie kind of stew with me. I like that shit. Like, for example, a movie like Skinamarink, I have never seen it before, but I have a feeling I would enjoy it, even though a lot of people say that it sucks really, really bad, because it's just shots of hallways and stuff. But I feel like I would have a lot of fun doing that movie, because, like, there's stuff to do, there's stuff for me to do as an audience member in between the movie, because I'm, like, doing theories and shit, and that is cool. I like that a lot. But all that to say that I am coming from a bit of a biased perspective, but overall there is some stuff I don't like about this movie. For example, there is a couple line reads from Mark that are a little bit cringy. For example, there's one where there's a giant monster on the camera, and he's like, "Oh, don't mind me. Act like I'm not even here. And if anyone asks for Simon, tell him I said hi," or whatever. And that was one of the cringiest lines in the movie. That was pretty fucking bad. Or, like, there's a couple times where it just doesn't land right, like his anger moment or his like funny moment doesn't hit right, and that's okay. but that did happen a few times, at least. But there was a couple motifs that he did that were, like, definitely corny, but I kind of loved them. For example, throughout the movie, the speaker lady is like, okay, we're gonna send you back down. And he's like, all right, but after this, I'm free, right? And then throughout the movie, she either doesn't respond or she says, after this, you're done for now, or something like that. But at the end of the movie, when she's like, I'm gonna come down and get you, and she really means it, he's like, after this, I'm free. And she says, after this, you're free. And that was, like, so fucking cool to me. That was so cool. Even though it's corny, even though it is corny and a little bit cringy, I was also like, damn. I was like, okay, I see you. And that's how I felt about a lot of stuff in this movie. I really liked the design of all these people and all these creatures, and like even the two factions that they have throughout this movie. They have Eden, which are these people that are trying to bring back humanity, bring back this tree, try to grow humanity again from the ground up, basically. And then there's the other faction, which is like a more militaristic, more realistic approach to it, which is like, we gotta go down into this blood ocean and try to find remnants of humanity to try to salvage humanity from the broken remnants, right? So, at least from what I understand, that's what the two factions are. The other guys are trying to grow it in, like, just grow it from the ground up in space, but their tree is dead, so they're not having any luck. And neither is the other faction, because everyone that they send down is dying, and they've sent down, like, a lot of people. So everyone they send is dying, and they're just losing numbers. And these two factions are at each other's throats, to the point where Mark's character is a massive part of that, a massive part of the Eden faction that blew up a space station. And that's the entire reason that he's in the submarine, is because he technically blew up the space station. And there's a whole, dilemma there with his character, where he's like, well, I didn't want to, but I was already this murderous war butcher guy, so I deserve this, but I wanted to change and I wanted things to be different, so I don't. And like, throughout this movie, he's being hit with like radiation, lack of oxygen, actually ghosts, monsters fucking with his brain. So he's having like hallucinations, and he's arguing with himself and just completely losing his mind. And I love that by the end of the movie, when he's like talking to this lady again, he's actually insane. And he's like, you need to stop. You need to get out of my head. I know you're not talking to me. I broke you, radio. I broke it. And like, it's so cool. It's so cool. It's very well done. I like that a lot. I like the gradual loss of sanity on his end that's told to you throughout the movie with little tiny sentences. Because like, the camera is a radiative camera, and we know that, but you wouldn't automatically assume that it would also affect Mark. But there is a little note in the book that he goes through super quickly. It's like 1 second on screen, where it says that the camera gives you radiation, use at your own risk. And he is spamming the camera throughout this entire movie. And I love that by the end of the movie, you can see like black veins in his head, because he has so much radiation poisoning from being down here for days, clicking this button, using it as a light source, just holding it down. So like that, it's such a cool concept, such a cool execution. But there were definitely its moments of, cringiness or set design being a little bit like YouTuber-y or not that great. And I definitely see some of these complaints, but I will say, I think the complaints of, well, this movie takes too long, or, well, Mark was angry a lot, I think those types of complaints are like, whatever, because at the end of the day, the movie does take a long time. It's a 2-hour movie, but every single shot tells you information that you didn't have before. Every single shot. Even the gradual shots of more and more blood coming off of the things inside of the ship, as the ship slowly breaks because of the pressure of the blood ocean. Like, throughout the movie, you just see, like, more and more shots of blood, like, dripping down from stuff. And at first, it's just condensation, and it starts to become blood, which, different recording session, by the way. Hopefully you don't notice. And you can see slowly throughout the movie, this condensation is slowly becoming blood. And I love that. It's so awesome. Just seeing this blood leak through, and seeing the blood ocean in general multiple times throughout this movie. Very, very awesome. Very cool. And getting the sense of scale with these caves that he goes through and these monsters, and even just the whole thing of like, he takes an x-ray picture of a skeleton, and then when he goes back down, the skeleton is gone, but then you realize the camera's an x-ray camera, so that wasn't a skeleton, and it was a living creature that just swam away. That is fucking horrifying the first time you watch it. That's like, oh shit. And even the ghosts in the machine, like there's a couple times throughout this movie where you see, like, I think there's only one time where you see a ghost, but then there's another time where you see Mark fucked up from the end of the movie, like, look at Mark, and like it looks like he's a monster or whatever, but he's not, and it's just a hallucination from Mark. But you know, it's really cool still, all really cool stuff. And a lot of this stuff is like, oh well, that's just amateur, but it all does very much link together in a really cool way, and that's what I love about it. Because if you take the time to connect these dots, the dots are all there, and that's what I love about this movie. It is a connect the dots to watch. You have to, like, you know, connect all these things together, because they don't explicitly tell you shit, but even on the computer as it's going past super quickly, there's things that you can read that are like talking about Eden and talking about like all the different programs and stuff. Very, very cool stuff. But all that to say, yes, I am kind of glazing this movie because I do have a little bit of a bias. I love horror. I love cosmic horror. I love the idea of a blood ocean. Because again, this movie is about a submarine going down into a ocean of blood. I just can't drill that point home enough. That's such a cool concept. So fucking cool. And I am a little bit biased towards that. I can't even lie. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. There is a few problems with this movie, but I highly recommend watching it. And definitely watch it legally, because Mark deserves it. This guy really does. I mean, listen, I would normally be like, hey, pirate the movie if you want to. Do it. Go ahead. But this is one of those rare times where I'm like, please give this guy cash. Please. And if you want to give me cash, perfect segue by the way, Patreon down below. Go take a look-see. It's nice. It's free. Also as well, I'm pretty sure there's a free tier. And if there's not, someone please leave a comment on there so I can make a free tier, because I forgot. But go check it out. Free content there soon. Whenever I make a movie review, there will be movie reviews with no filters or anything like that on there. All that type of stuff for free. But you can also pay me if you want to. Please. And then with that being said, I'm going to end the video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.